I hired a cleaning woman for my son's house on June 3rd. 64 years of living, and that was the phone call that ended the life I thought I had. My name is Loretta Washington. I'm sitting here in my one-bedroom apartment in Portland, Oregon, trying to figure out how to tell you this story. I've started 3 times already, deleted the words, started again. Because how do you explain that your own child, the baby you raised, the boy you sacrificed everything for, how do you explain that he's capable of something you spent your whole career fighting against? I worked as a social worker for 38 years, Department of Human Services, Child Protective Division. I walked into houses where children slept in closets, where parents locked them in basements, where the worst of humanity hid behind closed doors and Sunday smiles. I thought I'd seen everything. I was wrong. It was Gloria Martinez who called me that morning. June 4th, 10:15 a.m. I remember because I was working on an old dresser I'd picked up at an estate sale, sanding down decades of paint to find the oak underneath. Retirement hobby, you know. Keeps your hands busy when your mind won't settle. Miss Washington, Gloria's voice was shaking. I need you to come back to the house, right now. Gloria and I went back 15 years. We'd worked together on a case involving a neglected home in southeast Portland. After that case, she quit social work, said it was better for her mental health, started a cleaning business instead. Smart woman. We'd stayed in touch, exchanged Christmas cards, that sort of thing. What's wrong, Gloria? What happened? There's someone in the attic, someone crying. It's not a TV, Miss Washington. There's a child up there, a real child. I dropped the sandpaper. My hands went cold. I'm on my way. Don't go up there. Stay downstairs. I made that drive in 14 minutes. Don't ask me how. Portland traffic on a Thursday morning, and I made it from Lloyd District to Cedar Hill Drive in 14 minutes. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. A child crying in my son's attic. 40 years of instincts kicked in. The kind you can't turn off even when you retire. The kind that wake you up at 3 in the morning when you remember a case you couldn't solve, a child you couldn't save. But this was different. This was my son's house, my son's secret. And I'd given him that house. Let me back up. Tell you who I was before that phone call split my life into before and after. I'm Loretta Marie Washington, born in 1962 in North Portland to parents who worked 3 jobs between them to keep us fed. Daddy was a longshoreman. Mama cleaned houses in the West Hills, rich folks' houses with more bathrooms than we had rooms. I was the first in my family to finish college. Portland State, class of 1984, degree in social work. Met my husband James at a church barbecue that same year. He was a bus driver for TriMet, had a laugh that could fill a room. We got married 6 months later at Mount Zion Baptist Church, had Darnell 2 years after that. James died 12 years ago. Stroke. One minute he was telling me about his route, the next he was on the kitchen floor and I was screaming for someone to call 911. By the time the ambulance got there, he was already gone. Darnell was 24 then. He took it hard. We both did. But we got through it. Or I thought we did. Darnell was my only child. My whole world after James died. He was a good boy growing up. Not perfect. What child is? But good. He'd wait by the window every evening when I got home from work. Some of those cases, the ones that got under your skin, I'd walk in that door and just want to cry. But there'd be Darnell asking about my day, telling me about school, about his friends, about whatever 8-year-old boys think is the most important thing in the world. Guess what happened at school, Mama? That was his favorite phrase. He wasn't a scholar, my Darnell. Barely scraped through community college. Took him 6 years to get a 2-year degree. But he was persistent. Got himself a job in sales, worked his way up. By the time he was 30, he was pulling in close to $100,000 a year as a sales manager for some tech company. Not bad for a kid from North Portland. I was proud of him. So proud. Then, 4 years ago, he met Vanessa Pierce. First time he brought her to my apartment, I knew we weren't going to be close. You develop instincts in my line of work. You learn to read people in the first 5 minutes. Vanessa walked in wearing clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and spent the first 10 minutes looking around my place like she was calculating its resale value. "This is so urban," she said, not as a compliment. She was 30 years old, beautiful in that Instagram way where everything's perfectly lit and filtered. Said she was a lifestyle content creator. Took me a while to understand that meant she took pictures of herself and somehow got paid for it. Had about 50,000 people following her online, watching her eat expensive breakfasts and visit luxury hotels. During dinner that first night, I'd made my good pot roast, the one James used to love. Vanessa spent 20 minutes photographing her plate from different angles. "The lighting in here isn't great," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Too yellow." The food got cold while she took pictures. Darnell just smiled at her like she'd hung the moon. I should have seen it then. The red flags. The way she looked at my home, my life, me. Like we were all slightly beneath her. The way Darnell changed around her. Got quieter, more careful with his words. "But you want your child to be happy, don't you? Even when the person making them happy makes you uneasy." They got married 3 years ago. I found out from a text message. Not a call, not an invitation, a text. "Vanessa and I got married this weekend. Small ceremony, just us. Hope you understand." I called him immediately. "Darnell, what do you mean you got married? I didn't even know you were engaged." "Yeah, Mama, I meant to tell you, but Vanessa wanted something small, really intimate. Just the two of us and a photographer. It was perfect." "You didn't want your mother at your wedding?" Silence on the other end. Then, "Vanessa had a vision for how she wanted everything to look. The aesthetic, you understand." I understood perfectly. I wasn't aesthetic enough for my son's Instagram wedding. After that, the calls got less frequent. First every week, then every other week, then just holidays and birthdays. The invitations to visit stopped about 18 months ago. "The house is kind of a mess, Mama," Darnell would say when I'd suggest stopping by. "We're doing some work on it. Maybe next month." Next month never came. 4 years ago, when they first got serious, I'd done something I thought was generous. I had a house on Cedar Hill Drive. 3 bedrooms, nice yard, nothing fancy but solid. I'd been thinking about downsizing anyway, so I transferred it to Darnell. Well, not exactly transferred. I kept my name on the deed, but gave them full rights to live there rent-free. Call it a mother's instinct. 40 years in social services taught me to always keep a backup plan. "Mama, this is incredible," Darnell had said when I gave him the keys. "Vanessa and I, we won't forget this." Funny how people's memories work. So when my phone rang that morning of June 3rd and Darnell's name popped up, first time he'd called in 4 months, I knew he wanted something. "Hey, Mama, got a favor to ask." "No, how are you?" "No, I've been meaning to call." Just straight to business. "Sure, baby. What do you need?" "Vanessa and I are heading to Hawaii tomorrow morning. 10 days. The house is kind of a disaster, and we want it deep cleaned while we're gone. Would you mind hiring someone? We'll reimburse you, obviously." I sat there, coffee cup halfway to my lips, processing this. In 18 months, they couldn't spare 2 hours for me to visit, but now they needed me to arrange their cleaning service. "Why can't you just hire someone yourselves?" "We've been so swamped getting ready for the trip." There was an edge to his voice, that defensive tone he'd developed over the years. "It's just easier if you handle it, Mama. You're retired. You've got the time, right?" I could have said no. Should have said no. But when your child asks for help, even your distant, ungrateful child, you say yes. "Fine, I'll take care of it." "Great. Just make sure they're thorough. Vanessa wants everything spotless. Baseboards, windows, the attic, everything. I'll text you our flight details." The call ended. No thank you. No love you, Mama. Just click. I sat there staring at my phone. Then I called Gloria. That's how we got here. That's how, 36 hours later, I was racing across Portland because Gloria Martinez, who'd seen enough in her 15 years of social work to not rattle easily, was scared enough to call me with a shaking voice. Gloria was standing on the front porch when I pulled up, phone clutched in both hands. Her face was pale, eyes wide. "It's still going," she said as I climbed the porch steps. "The crying. It stopped for a bit, but then it started again." I unlocked the door. We stepped inside. The house looked the same as the last time I'd been there, 2 years ago. Everything white and gray and sterile. Vanessa's aesthetic. Photos covered the walls. Darnell and Vanessa on beaches, in restaurants, on hiking trails. All smiling. All perfect. All just the two of them. Not a single picture included me, but that wasn't what caught my attention. It was the sound. Faint, from somewhere above us. A soft hiccuping sound. A child's cry. Unmistakable once you'd heard it as many times as I had. The attic access was in the hallway ceiling, one of those pull-down ladders. I yanked the cord. The stairs unfolded with a creak that seemed too loud. Gloria stayed at the bottom. I climbed up. The attic was dim, lit only by light filtering through a small circular window at one end. Boxes lined the walls, Christmas decorations, old clothes, the accumulated junk of 4 years of marriage. The air was stale and hot, even with ventilation. And in the far corner, I saw it. An old wooden wardrobe, completely out of place up here. Victorian style, the kind you'd find at an antique store. The kind that looked decorative until you realized someone had been using it. The crying was coming from inside. My hands shook as I crossed the attic. Each step felt like it took an hour. I'd been in situations like this before. Finding hidden children. Discovering secrets families kept locked away. But this was different. This was my son's house. My son's attic. My son's secret. I opened the wardrobe door. Inside was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old. Thin. Too thin. Her hair was dark and curly, tangled and dirty, pulled back with a rubber band that looked like it had been there for days. She wore a pink t-shirt, stained too small, and shorts that were practically rags. Behind her, I could see a thin mattress on the wardrobe floor, some plastic plates with dried food residue, a half-empty water bottle, a teddy bear with one eye missing. She was pressed into the corner, knees drawn up to her chest, looking at me with huge, terrified eyes. For a moment, I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what I was seeing. This was every nightmare case I'd worked on in my career, except it was happening in my own family, to a child I didn't even know existed. I crouched down slowly, making myself smaller, less threatening. Old training kicking in automatically. "Hey there," I said softly. "My name is Loretta. I'm not going to hurt you. Can you tell me your name?" She shrank back further, breathing fast, panicked. "It's okay," I continued, keeping my voice gentle, steady. "I'm here to help. Are you hungry? Thirsty? I can get you something." She watched me for a long moment, then, in a voice barely above a whisper, "Are you the cleaning lady's friend?" "Yes." "Gloria heard you crying and got worried. She called me." "I tried to be quiet," the girl said, fresh tears rolling down her cheeks. "I tried so hard, but I got scared. It's dark up here at night, and I heard noises, and I thought maybe it's all right. You don't have to be quiet anymore." "What's your name, sweetheart?" Another pause. Then, "Aaliyah. My name is Aaliyah." Aaliyah. The name meant nothing to me. I'd never heard Darnell mention an Aaliyah. Never heard Vanessa talk about any children. My son had a whole child I didn't know about. "How old are you, Aaliyah?" 5. I'll be 6 in August." "That's a good age. And Aaliyah, can you tell me whose house this is? Who brought you here?" Her eyes dropped to the floor. "My daddy." My heart stopped. "Who's your daddy, sweetheart?" "Darnell. He said I have to stay up here while he and Vanessa are gone. He said to be very quiet and not come down, and he'd be back soon. He said," her voice cracked, "he said I'm supposed to stay hidden because I'm not supposed to be here. Because Vanessa doesn't want—" She couldn't finish, just started crying harder. The cold that had been spreading through my chest since I opened that wardrobe turned to ice. My daddy, Darnell. This was my granddaughter. Darnell had a daughter, had been hiding her in his attic. My granddaughter, kept like a secret, like something shameful, locked away in a closet in the dark. And I'd known nothing. Nothing. I'd spent 38 years walking into houses like this. documenting abuse, building cases, protecting children from their own parents. I'd developed instincts that could spot trouble from a mile away, and I'd missed my own granddaughter living in a closet. "Aaliyah," I said, fighting to keep my voice calm even though everything inside me was screaming. "I'm Darnell's mother. That makes me your grandmother. And I promise you, baby, you're not staying in this attic anymore. Not for one more minute." Her eyes widened. You're my grandma?" "Yes, sweetheart, I am. And we're going to get you out of here right now." I helped her stand. She was shaky on her feet like she hadn't walked much recently. I guided her toward the attic stairs, my arm around her tiny shoulders. Gloria gasped when she saw Aaliyah, her hand flying to her mouth. "Call 911, I told Gloria, my voice harder than I'd intended. "Tell them we found a child being kept in an attic. Tell them we need police and child protective services, now." Gloria nodded, already pulling out her phone. I carried Aaliyah downstairs. She weighed almost nothing. I sat her on the couch, that expensive white couch Vanessa had probably spent thousands on, and got her water from the kitchen. Some crackers I found in the pantry. She ate like she was starving, which she probably was. While Gloria talked to the 911 operator, I sat next to Aaliyah. Pieces of my life were rearranging themselves into a horrible new picture. My son had a daughter, had hidden her from me, from everyone, had kept her locked in an attic like she was something to be ashamed of. My son, who I'd raised to be better, to be kind, had done this. Sirens started in the distance, growing louder. Aaliyah flinched at the sound. "It's okay," I told her, taking her small hand in mine. "Those are the good guys. They're coming to help." She looked up at me with those big, scared eyes. "Is Daddy going to be mad?" I thought about Darnell on a beach in Hawaii right now, drinking cocktails, taking pictures for Vanessa's Instagram, posting their perfect vacation photos while his daughter sat in darkness, afraid, alone. "Don't you worry about your daddy," I said quietly. "I'll handle him. The police would be here in minutes. Child Protective Services would follow." The system I'd worked in for 38 years was about to descend on my son's perfect house, on his perfect life, and tear it all apart. And I was going to make absolutely certain it did, because Darnell had made one critical mistake. He'd asked me for help. He'd brought me here. He'd shown me his secret. He'd forgotten who his mother was, what his mother knew how to do. I'd spent my entire career being the person who walked into broken homes and made sure children were protected. Now I was going to do it to my own son, and I wasn't going to stop until Aaliyah was safe. Permanently. The sirens got louder. Aaliyah pressed closer to me. I held her tight and waited. Not for the police. I already knew what they'd do. I'd trained half of them. I waited for the moment when Darnell would find out. When that phone call would come, interrupting his perfect vacation, shattering his perfect life. I waited for him to realize that his mother wasn't just some retired old woman he could ignore. I was Loretta Washington, and he just made the worst mistake of his life. Officer Raymond Foster arrived first, 7 minutes after Gloria's call. Young guy, maybe 30, with the careful demeanor of someone who'd been trained to handle delicate situations. He took one look at Aaliyah on the couch, tiny, dirty, clutching a cracker like it might disappear, and his jaw tightened. "Ma'am," he said to me, pulling out a notebook, "I'm going to need you to walk me through what happened here." I'd done this dance 100 times from the other side. "My name is Loretta Washington. I'm a retired social worker, DHS Child Protective Division, 38 years. This is my son's house. I came here today to let in a cleaning service. The woman I hired, Gloria Martinez, also former DHS, heard crying from the attic. When we investigated, we found this child locked in a wardrobe up there," Foster wrote quickly. "And the child is?" "My granddaughter, Aaliyah Washington, 5 years old. I didn't know she existed until approximately," I checked my watch, 43 minutes ago. His pen stopped. He looked up at me. "You're telling me your son had a child you didn't know about?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you. And based on her physical condition and the living space up there, I'm telling you she's been kept in that attic for an extended period." possibly months. A white sedan pulled up outside, Department of Human Services plates. I recognized it before the driver even got out. That was Linda Thompson's car. Linda and I had worked together on exactly 2 cases before I retired. She was good at her job, thorough, didn't let emotions cloud her judgment. She was going to need all of that today. She came through the door, saw me, and her face went through several emotions in quick succession. Surprise, confusion, then recognition of what this meant. "Loretta?" She looked around, taking in the scene. Gloria standing by the window, Officer Foster with his notebook, me sitting next to a tiny, frightened child on an expensive white couch. "What are you doing here?" "This is my son's house," I said. My voice was steady, professional. I'd slipped back into work mode without even thinking about it. "That's my granddaughter. I didn't know she existed until an hour ago." Linda's eyes widened, but she recovered quickly, pulled out her tablet. "I'm going to need a full statement. Everything from the beginning," I told her, about Darnell's call requesting the cleaning service, about Gloria finding Aaliyah, about the closet in the attic, the thin mattress, the plastic plates, about what Aaliyah had told me, that her daddy said she had to stay hidden, stay quiet, because Vanessa didn't want her here. Linda took notes without interrupting. Officer Foster went upstairs to photograph the attic. I heard his footsteps above us, careful and methodical. When he came back down 20 minutes later, his face was grim. "I've documented everything," he said to Linda. "The space, the conditions. He glanced at Aaliyah, lowered his voice. "It's bad." Linda finished her notes and looked at me. "We need to take Aaliyah to the hospital. Full medical examination. Standard protocol." "I know the protocol. I helped write it." "Then you know I can't release her to you yet. Not until we complete the investigation. I'm filing for emergency kinship care. Today. You know I'm qualified." "Loretta." "Linda, don't. You know me. You know my record. You know I'm her best option right now. File the paperwork. Do the background check. You'll have approval by end of day." She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll start the process. But first, the hospital." Portland Providence Medical Center was 15 minutes away. I rode in the ambulance with Aaliyah. She held my hand the entire way, her grip surprisingly strong for such a small child. "Grandma?" she said quietly as we drove. "Are they going to make me go back to the attic?" "No, baby, never. I promise you that on my life." "Promise?" "Promise." At the hospital, they took her back for examination. Dr. Priya Patel was the pediatrician on duty. I'd worked with her on a case 6 years ago, a toddler who'd been locked in a bathroom for 3 days. She remembered me. "Ms. Washington," she said, recognition in her eyes. "I heard you retired." "I did. 2 years ago. This is personal." "I understand. I'll take good care of her." I sat in the waiting room while they examined Aaliyah. Linda sat with me, working on her tablet, pulling up files. That's when she showed me the first piece of information that made everything click into horrible clarity. "Loretta, I pulled the records. Aaliyah's mother was Keisha Washington. Died 2 years ago. Cancer. Darnell was granted full custody. There's a child support payment listed, $1,350 monthly, paid by Darnell to an account under Aaliyah's name." I looked at her. "Let me guess. He has access to that account." Linda's expression told me I was right. She pulled up bank records, preliminary information from a database search. "These are just the basics. We'll need to subpoena for full records, but yes, he has access, and there have been consistent withdrawals." My hands clenched in my lap. "How much?" 24 months of payments. That's $32,400 total that should be in that account. Current balance is," she scrolled, $847. $31,553 gone. Spent while his daughter lived in a closet. I didn't say anything. Couldn't trust my voice yet. Instead, I pulled out my phone and started making notes. Dates, amounts. Everything Linda was telling me. Old habits. Dr. Patel came out 3 hours later. Her face was carefully neutral, but I could read the anger in her eyes. After 40 years in this work, you learn to see what people are trying to hide. Ms. Washington, Aaliyah is severely malnourished. She weighs 36 pounds. She should be between 42 and 46 for her age. She's dehydrated, showing signs of vitamin D deficiency, which suggests limited sun exposure. Her muscle tone indicates she hasn't been physically active in some time. She paused, checking her notes. Beyond the physical, there are psychological concerns. She's presenting with symptoms consistent with prolonged isolation, anxiety, hypervigilance, delayed speech patterns for her age. She startles easily. She's afraid of being left alone, even for a few minutes. Ms. Washington, this child has been through severe trauma. Can I see her? She's asking for you. Room 304. Aaliyah was in a hospital bed that looked far too big for her small frame, hooked up to an IV for rehydration. Her eyes were closed, but they opened when I walked in. Grandma. The word was tentative, like she was still testing it out. I'm here, baby. They said I have to stay overnight, for observation. She pronounced the word carefully, like she'd just learned it. What does that mean? It means they want to make sure you're okay. Make sure you're getting the medicine and food you need. Will you stay? I pulled a chair close to the bed. As long as they let me. She was quiet for a moment, then, Grandma? Why didn't I know about you? Daddy never said I had a grandma. The question hit like a physical blow. I didn't know about you either, sweetheart. Your daddy didn't tell me you existed. Why not? I don't know, baby, but I'm going to find out. She fell asleep a few minutes later, exhausted. I sat there watching her breathe, this little stranger who was my granddaughter, and felt something settle inside me. Not quite peace. I was too angry for peace, but clarity. Darnell had made his choices. Now I was going to make mine. I left the hospital at midnight. Linda had already texted. Background check clear. Emergency kinship care approved pending full home inspection. We'll need to do a walkthrough of your apartment tomorrow. I drove back to my one-bedroom apartment in Lloyd District. It was small, just under 700 square feet, but it was mine. No pretense, no aesthetic. Just a space where I could live without performance. I made coffee I didn't drink and sat at my kitchen table with my laptop. Washington via to Washington, evidence log. That's what I titled the document. Then I started making lists. After 38 years of building cases, I knew exactly what I needed. Immediate actions. Medical records from Dr. Patel. Police report from Officer Foster. Photos of attic space. DHS preliminary investigation. Emergency kinship care approval. Next steps. Bank statements. Requires subpoena. Neighbor testimonies. Security camera footage, if available. Psychological evaluation for Aaliyah. Legal representation. That last one was important. I needed a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. Someone who specialized in family law, who understood how these cases worked, who wouldn't be intimidated by Darnell's money or Vanessa's social media following. I knew exactly who to call. At 1 a.m., sitting in my kitchen, I said out loud to the empty room, "All right then. 2 words. That's all it took, because everything that came after those 2 words, that was already decided." June 5th, day 1. I was up at 6 a.m., made a pot of coffee, actually drank it this time, and started making phone calls. First call, Linda Thompson. Linda, I'm filing for permanent guardianship. Not just emergency placement. Permanent. There was a pause on her end. Loretta, you know that's going to be a fight. Darnell is still her legal father. Darnell locked his daughter in a closet and stole her money. I'm not asking your opinion on whether I can win. I'm telling you, I'm filing. I'll send you the paperwork. I know where to find it. I helped design the forms, remember? But I appreciate the support. The paperwork arrived in my email within an hour. I filled it out meticulously. Every line, every question, name, address, employment history, references. I listed every qualification I had, the degree, the certifications, the 38 years of experience. I attached my retirement documentation from DHS, my background check from yesterday, letters of recommendation from former colleagues. By 11:30 a.m., I'd submitted everything. By 3 p.m., Linda called back. Preliminary approval granted. You can pick up Aaliyah from the hospital this evening. You'll need to attend regular check-ins with DHS, and Aaliyah will need ongoing medical and psychological follow-ups. Whatever it takes. Loretta? Her voice softened. I'm sorry about all of this. Not your fault. Thank you for moving quickly. Second call. Shanice Harper. I'd gotten her name from a colleague 5 years ago during a particularly complicated custody case. Shanice had represented the grandmother seeking guardianship of her grandson. She'd won. Everyone said she was tough, thorough, and didn't lose. Her office was downtown, 18th floor of a glass tower near Pioneer Courthouse Square. I made an appointment for that afternoon. Shanice Harper was a black woman in her early 50s, wearing a sharp gray suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her office walls were covered with framed law degrees and certificates. She looked like someone who didn't tolerate nonsense. Ms. Washington, she said, gesturing to a chair. Tell me what's going on. I told her. Everything. The phone call from Darnell, finding Aaliyah, the medical reports, the missing money, the house I'd given them, all of it. She listened without interrupting, taking occasional notes on a legal pad. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. Ms. Washington, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. What you're describing is a strong case for neglect and likely criminal charges. But Darnell is still Aaliyah's legal father. If he wants to fight for custody, he can. Can he win? Not if we present the evidence properly. Medical records showing malnourishment and neglect. Police documentation of the conditions she was kept in. The financial exploitation. Testimony from everyone involved. She tapped her pen against the pad. But here's what we need to aim for. Not just temporary custody for you. Permanent guardianship. And if possible, termination of Darnell's parental rights. What do I need to do? Document everything. Every instance of neglect. Every medical finding. Every financial transaction that shows he was using Aaliyah's money for himself. We build a case so airtight that no judge could possibly rule in his favor. She quoted me her rates. Retainer, $9,200. Hourly, $375. I had about $73,000 in savings. Money James and I had put away over the years. Money I'd been saving for retirement travel, maybe a new car eventually. I didn't hesitate. When do we start? Shanice smiled. Not a warm smile, but a satisfied one. The smile of someone who'd just taken on a case they knew they could win. We already have. June 6th, day 2, I picked up Aaliyah from the hospital that evening. She had a small bag of belongings, some clothes the hospital had provided, a stuffed elephant from one of the nurses, and nothing else. Everything she owned in the world fit in a plastic shopping bag. In the car, she was quiet, staring out the window at Portland passing by. Where are we going? She finally asked. To my place. You're going to stay with me for a while. Is Daddy going to come get me? I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Not right now. Right now, you're safe with me. My apartment felt smaller with a 5-year-old in it. Aaliyah stood in the doorway, uncertain, while I tried to figure out sleeping arrangements. The couch would have to work for me. She could have the bedroom. Are you hungry? I asked. When's the last time you ate something that wasn't hospital food? She thought about it. I don't remember. I ordered pizza, pepperoni. Figured that was safe. While we waited, Aaliyah explored the apartment with careful, quiet steps, like she was afraid to make noise. She stopped at my workbench where I'd been restoring that dresser. What's this? She asked. I fix old furniture. Make it pretty again. She ran her small finger along the smooth wood I'd been sanding. It's nice? You like art? Drawing, painting, that kind of thing? A tiny nod. We'll get you some supplies tomorrow. Paper, crayons, markers, whatever you want. Her eyes widened. Really? Really. The pizza arrived. She ate like she was starving, 3 slices before she slowed down. I watched her, this little stranger who was my granddaughter, and felt the weight of what I'd taken on. I was 64 years old. I'd been looking forward to retirement. quiet days, working on furniture projects, maybe some travel. Instead, I was about to become a full-time guardian to a traumatized 5-year-old. But when I looked at her, I didn't feel regret. I felt purpose. After dinner, I set her up in my bedroom. She sat on the edge of the bed, small and lost in the space. "Grandma," she said quietly, "thank you for getting me out of the attic." "You don't need to thank me, baby. You should never have been there in the first place. Vanessa said I had to stay hidden. She said I ruined everything by existing." My hands clenched into fists. I kept my voice calm. "Vanessa was wrong. You didn't ruin anything. You're not something to be hidden away." She looked up at me with those big eyes. "Are you sure?" "I'm absolutely sure." June 7th to 10th, days 3 to 6, building the case. For the next 4 days, I worked. Not the retirement kind of work where you putter around and take your time. The focused, methodical work I'd done for 38 years, building a case. Shanice had given me a list. I was checking off every item. Medical records. Dr. Patel sent them over. 37 pages documenting every injury, every deficiency, every sign of neglect. The report concluded, "This child has experienced systematic isolation and deprivation consistent with severe abuse." Police report. Officer Foster's documentation was thorough. Photos of the attic space from every angle. The 8x10 closet. The mattress barely 2 inches thick. The single 40-watt bulb. Measurements showing the space was too small for an adult to stand up straight. His notes. Conditions consistent with unlawful confinement. Bank records. This required a subpoena. Shanice filed it on June 7th. Judge Martha Rivera, who I'd appeared before twice in my career, granted it the same day. The records arrived on June 9th. I spent 6 hours going through them with the meticulous attention to detail I'd developed over 4 decades. Every transaction, every withdrawal, every transfer. There it was, clear as day. Child support account. Aaliyah, Washington. Monthly deposits $1,350 times 24 months equals $32,400. Current balance $847. Total withdrawn $31,553. I cross-referenced the withdrawals with Darnell's personal bank statements and credit cards. Every withdrawal matched a personal expense. Tesla Model Y. Down payment $12,000, with subsequent payments totaling $39,000, over his budget, supplemented with Aaliyah's money. Travel expenses. Hawaii, $4,800. Cancun, $4,200. Sedona, $3,100. Portland Coast trips, $2,700. Vanessa's shopping. Nordstrom, $4,300. Neiman Marcus, $3,800. Designer boutiques, $6,400. Restaurants, 73 charges over 24 months totaling $6,300. Children's expenses from Aaliyah's account, $0. Pediatrician visits, 2, minimum legal requirement. Toys, clothes, books, school supplies, $0. I made a spreadsheet. Color-coded, every withdrawal in red. Every personal luxury expense highlighted in yellow. The total theft amount in bold at the bottom. I printed it, hung it on my refrigerator. Every morning for a week, I looked at it while I made Aaliyah breakfast. Not because I needed to remember, because I needed to stay cold. Anger fades. Ice doesn't. Neighbor testimonies. This was harder. I had to go back to Cedar Hill Drive, back to that house where I'd found Aaliyah. I hadn't been back since that first day. The house looked the same. Sterile. Perfect. Empty. I knocked on the door next door first. Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, according to the mailbox. They'd lived there 6 years based on the class of 2023 graduation sign still in their yard. Mrs. Patterson answered. White woman, early 60s, kind face. "Hi, I'm Loretta Washington. I'm Darnell Washington's mother, from next door." Her face changed. Oh my goodness. We heard the police were here a few days ago. Is everything okay?" "No, ma'am, it's not. Could I ask you a few questions?" They invited me in. I sat in their living room and asked them what they'd seen. "We've been neighbors for 3 years," Mr. Patterson said, "since Darnell and Vanessa moved in. Nice couple, always waving hello. But, I prompted. Mrs. Patterson took over. "We've never seen a child, not once. Not in the yard, not getting in or out of the car. Nothing. We asked Darnell once if they were planning on kids, and he laughed and said Vanessa wasn't the mom type. Did you ever hear anything? Crying, shouting, anything unusual?" They both shook their heads. "The house is always quiet," Mr. Patterson said. "That's why we were so shocked when the police came." I visited 2 more neighbors, the Williams family across the street, Mrs. Okafor 2 houses down. All of them said the same thing. In 8 months, they'd never seen a child at that house. Mrs. Okafor added something else. "I follow Vanessa on Instagram. She posts everything, her coffee, her outfits, her trips. I've never seen her post about a child. Ever." Security footage. This was the piece I hadn't expected to find. Mr. Patterson mentioned it almost in passing. "We have a Ring doorbell. Records everyone who comes and goes on the street. The police asked for the footage, so we gave it to them. But I still have the backup files if you need them." I needed them. He transferred 8 months of footage to a flash drive. 8 months of time-stamped video showing every time Darnell and Vanessa left their house. I went home and watched it all. Took me 2 days. Shanice came over on the 2nd day to help me compile it. We found 47 instances of Darnell and Vanessa leaving the house together over 8 months. Restaurant dinners, 23 times. Morning jogs, 11 times. Shopping trips, 8 times. Weekend getaways, 5 times. Every single time, they were alone. Just the 2 of them, never with a child. "This is damning," Shanice said, watching the compilation we'd edited together. "They lived their lives like Aaliyah didn't exist. Because to them, she didn't." June 15th. It was 7 a.m. when my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered anyway. "Yes?" "Mama," Darnell's voice. Background noise. An airport, by the sound of it. "What the hell did you do?" So they knew. The Oregon State Police must have finally tracked them down in Hawaii. Day 6 of their vacation, interrupted by reality. "Good morning to you too, baby." "Don't play games with me!" His voice was shaking. Rage, panic, disbelief, all mixed together. "The police called us. They said Aaliyah was found in our house. That she's in the hospital. That you—" I heard Vanessa shouting something in the background. "That you called CPS on us. I called 911 when I found a malnourished child locked in a closet in your attic. What did you expect me to do?" "She's my daughter. You had no right. I had every right. I'm her grandmother. Not that you bothered to mention her existence to me." There was a pause. I could hear them arguing, Vanessa's voice getting louder and more hysterical. Then Darnell was back. "We're coming home today, cutting the trip short. And when we get there, you're giving Aaliyah back." "She's not a borrowed car, Darnell. She's a child. And no, I'm not giving her back to the people who kept her in an attic." "You can't do this. You can't just take someone's kid." "I didn't take her. The state placed her with me through emergency kinship care. Everything's legal, documented, by the book. The book I helped write, remember?" I paused. "But please do come home. I'm sure the authorities would love to speak with you in person." He hung up without another word. I stood there holding the phone, feeling the cold satisfaction of that first small victory. They were scrambling now, cutting their vacation short, flying back to Portland to face what they'd done. Good, let them scramble. June 16th, I didn't have Instagram, didn't see the point. But Shanice did, and she called me that afternoon, her voice tight. "Loretta, Vanessa just posted a video. It's going viral. You need to see this." She sent me a link. I watched it on my laptop while Aaliyah colored at the kitchen table. Vanessa was in what looked like an airport bathroom. No makeup, hair messy, crying. "My family is being destroyed," she said to the camera, voice shaking. "Darnell's mother has always hated me. She's never accepted me. And now she's using our daughter, our daughter to tear us apart. This is elder manipulation. This is parental alienation. We're the victims here. We're being persecuted for... I closed the laptop. Couldn't watch any more. What was that? Aaliyah asked, looking up from her drawing. Nothing, baby. Just some people saying things that aren't true. But it wasn't nothing. Within hours, that video had over 1 million views. The comments were split at first. Some people sympathizing with Vanessa, some people suspicious. Then someone posted a link to the police report. Then photos of the attic closet, leaked by someone. I don't know who. Then people started digging into Vanessa's Instagram history, noticing that in 3 years of posting daily, she'd never once mentioned a stepdaughter. The tide turned fast. By midnight, Vanessa's follower count had dropped from 52,000 to 14,000. Companies were pulling sponsorships. Comments on her old posts were brutal. You kept a child in a closet while posting $40 smoothie bowls. You're a monster. 3 years of perfect life content and not one mention of your husband's daughter because she was locked in an attic. This isn't elder manipulation. This is a grandmother saving a child from you. Vanessa made her account private, then deleted the video. But the internet never forgets. Screenshots lived forever. Shanice called again later that night. Loretta, this changes things. Public opinion is on your side. That's going to matter. I don't care about public opinion. I care about keeping Aaliyah safe. I know, but judges are human. They see the news. They use social media. The fact that Vanessa tried to paint herself as the victim and got destroyed for it, that helps us. Maybe it did, but I wasn't counting on it. I was counting on evidence, on documentation, on the cold, hard facts of what Darnell and Vanessa had done. That's what would win this case. Not social media, not public opinion, the truth. June 28th. The courthouse was downtown, a stern, concrete building I'd been to hundreds of times in my career. Always as a witness for the state, never as the petitioner. Today was different. I arrived at 9:30 with Shanice. Aaliyah had stayed home with Mrs. Patterson, my neighbor who'd become something of a surrogate grandmother herself. Aaliyah didn't need to be here for this, didn't need to see her father. Across the hallway I saw them, Darnell and Vanessa with their lawyer. Darnell looked terrible. He'd lost weight. Dark circles under his eyes. Expensive suit that probably came from his stolen money, but he wore it badly, shoulders hunched like he was trying to make himself smaller. Vanessa wore a conservative navy dress. No Instagram makeup. Hair pulled back simply. Someone had coached them on courtroom appearance. When Vanessa saw me, she whispered something to Darnell. He turned. Our eyes met across the hallway. I saw fear there. Good. He started walking toward me. His lawyer, Robert Brennan, according to Shanice's briefing, grabbed his arm. Don't. Not here. But Darnell pulled free, came right up to me. Mama, please. His voice was desperate. We can fix this. Just drop the case. Let us take Aaliyah home. We'll do better. I swear we'll do better. I looked at him. My son. The boy I'd raised. The man who'd locked his daughter in a closet. Darnell, I said quietly, I spent 38 years walking into houses where parents said we'll do better. You know what I learned? They never do. Because people who lock children in closets aren't making mistakes. They're making choices. Vanessa stepped forward, tears already forming. Calculated, I thought. She'd practiced this. Miss Washington, I know you never liked me. I know you think I'm not good enough for your son. But this, using Aaliyah to hurt us, that's cruel. That's beneath you. I looked at her for a long moment, let the silence stretch. Baby, I finally said, if I wanted to hurt you, I would have done it 3 years ago when you didn't invite me to my son's wedding because I wasn't aesthetic enough. But this isn't about you. This isn't even about Darnell. This is about a 5-year-old child who spent 8 months in a closet while you posted pictures of your avocado toast. I stepped closer, lowered my voice so only they could hear. Now get out of my way. I have a granddaughter to protect. Inside the courtroom, Judge Sandra Pierce presiding. I knew of her. African-American woman, late 50s, silver locks pulled back in a professional style. She had a reputation, didn't tolerate BS, especially when it came to children. She'd been appointed to the bench 3 years after I retired, but her name came up often in conversations with former colleagues. Tough, fair, uncompromising, perfect. Shanice stood to present our case. She laid it out methodically. Medical records, police photos, Gloria Martinez's testimony via affidavit, neighbor statements, security footage, every piece of evidence building on the last. Judge Pierce's face grew harder with each exhibit. Then came the bank records. Shanice had them projected on a screen for the whole courtroom to see. Child support deposits, $32,400. Children's expenses, $0. Personal luxury expense, $51,000 plus Your Honor, Shanice said. Mr. Washington received $1,350 monthly for Aaliyah's care. Over 24 months, that's $32,400. Our forensic accountant traced these funds through multiple accounts. They were consistently diverted to personal expenses. A Tesla, luxury vacations, designer shopping, while Aaliyah lived in a closet with plastic dishes and a mattress on the floor. Brennan stood. Your Honor, my clients were in the process of home renovation. The attic was temporary housing while they prepared Aaliyah's permanent room. Ms. Washington is mischaracterizing, if I may, Your Honor. Shanice pulled out another folder. We have statements from 3 licensed contractors in the Portland area. None of them have any record of consultations, quotes, or work orders from Mr. Washington regarding any renovation. Not in the past 2 years. Not ever. Brennan's mouth opened. Closed. He shuffled papers, found nothing. Shanice continued. Furthermore, the defendants own a 3-bedroom house. If they were truly renovating one room, why not place Aaliyah in either of the other 2 bedrooms? Or, radical idea, in their own room temporarily? Why an 8x10 closet in the attic with no ventilation, no natural light, and barely enough space to stand? The courtroom was silent. Judge Pierce looked directly at Darnell. Mr. Washington, I'm going to ask you a direct question and I need you to answer honestly. How long was Aaliyah living in that attic space? Brennan leaned over to whisper to him. Darnell's voice was barely audible. Around 8 months. And during those 8 months, did you take her outside? To a park? To school? Anywhere? Silence. Mr. Washington, I need a verbal answer for the record. No, Your Honor. Did anyone outside your household know she was living there? No. Did your mother, Mrs. Loretta Washington, know about Aaliyah's existence? Darnell looked at me, then away. No. Judge Pierce made a note. So you hid your daughter from the world, including from her own grandmother, while spending money meant for her care on personal luxuries. Is that accurate? Darnell's voice broke. Yes. The gavel came down. I'm ordering a full psychological evaluation of Aaliyah Washington to be completed within 3 weeks. Temporary guardianship remains with Loretta Washington. Mr. Darnell Washington and Mrs. Vanessa Washington are prohibited from contact with the minor pending further hearings. Another strike of the gavel. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the Multnomah County District Attorney for review of potential criminal charges. We're adjourned. In the hallway afterward, Darnell tried one more time. Vanessa pulled him back. Don't, she hissed. She's made her choice. I stopped, turned around. No, baby, I said, looking at Vanessa. You made your choice 8 months ago when you decided a child didn't fit your aesthetic. I'm just making sure everyone sees what you chose. I walked away. Behind me, I heard Darnell sink against the wall, heard reporters swarming with questions. Shanice and I took the elevator down in silence. When we reached the lobby, she finally spoke. That went well. It's not over. No, she agreed. But we're winning. Winning. Yes, we were winning. But it didn't feel like victory yet. It felt like the beginning of something longer, harder. Still, when I thought about Vanessa's face when the judge ordered them to stay away from Aaliyah, when I remembered Darnell's shock at having his financial exploitation laid bare in open court, I couldn't help but feel grim satisfaction. They'd underestimated me, thought I was just a retired old woman who'd roll over and accept their version of events. They were learning otherwise. I was Loretta Washington. I'd spent 38 years being the woman who walked into broken homes and made sure children were safe. Now I was doing it to my own son, and I wasn't going to stop until Aaliyah was protected. Permanently. 3 months between the weeks after that first hearing fell into a rhythm I hadn't expected. Not the quiet rhythm of retirement I'd imagined, but something fuller, harder, more meaningful. Aaliyah started therapy with Dr. Helen Morales 2 days after the hearing. Dr. Morales was in her late 40s, had kind eyes and a gentle manner that immediately put children at ease. She'd been doing this work for 20 years, long enough to have seen everything, but not so long that she'd lost her compassion. "Ms. Washington," she told me after the first session, "this is going to take time. What Aaliyah experienced, the isolation, the neglect, the message that she needed to be invisible to be safe, that kind of trauma doesn't heal quickly. I know. I worked with traumatized children for 38 years. I'm not expecting miracles." "Good, because there won't be any. Just slow, hard work. But she's resilient, and she has you. That matters more than you know." Twice a week, I'd take Aaliyah to Dr. Morales' office in Northwest Portland. She'd go in with her backpack, the dinosaur one she'd picked out herself at Target, her first choice ever about anything, and I'd sit in the waiting room, working on my laptop, building the case. After each session, Aaliyah would be quiet in the car. Sometimes she'd talk about what they'd discussed. Sometimes she wouldn't. I learned not to push, just to be there. "We played a game today," she said one afternoon in mid-July. "Dr. Morales gave me cards with faces on them. Happy, sad, scared, angry. I had to pick which one I felt." "What did you pick?" "Scared, but also safe." She said I could pick two, that it's okay to feel two things at once. I reached over and squeezed her hand. She's right. You can be scared and safe at the same time. That's normal, baby. She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Grandma, do you think I'll ever stop being scared?" "I think the scared feeling will get smaller. Not gone, maybe, but smaller, until it's just a tiny part of you instead of the whole thing." "I hope so." Kindergarten started in late August. I enrolled Aaliyah at Alameda Elementary, 3 blocks from my apartment. Small school, good reputation, teachers who actually cared. The first day, she clung to my hand so tight I thought she might break my fingers. "What if the other kids don't like me?" she whispered as we walked toward the classroom. "Then they don't know what they're missing. But baby, I think they're going to love you." I was right. By the end of the first week, she'd made 3 friends. Destiny, a girl with beads in her braids who loved to read. Keisha, who brought homemade cookies to share. Zara, who taught Aaliyah how to jump rope during recess. Normal kid things, the life she should have had all along. Her teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, called me in for a conference at the end of September. "Ms. Washington, I want to be honest with you. Aaliyah is adjusting well socially, which is wonderful, but academically she's behind. Significantly behind. Her reading level is where we'd expect a 3-year-old, not a 5-year-old. Her math skills are practically non-existent, and her fine motor control, holding a pencil, cutting with scissors, suggests she hasn't had much practice." She hasn't. She spent 8 months in isolation with minimal stimulation. Ms. Rodriguez's face softened. "I heard about the case. I'm so sorry, but I want you to know, we're going to catch her up. I'm recommending extra tutoring, occupational therapy for the fine motor skills, and speech therapy. It's going to take work, but she can do it. Whatever she needs, we'll make it happen." And we did. 3 times a week after school, Aaliyah stayed for tutoring. Tuesdays and Thursdays were Dr. Morales. Wednesday afternoons were occupational therapy, working on hand-eye coordination, learning to hold a pencil properly, to cut in straight lines. It was exhausting, for both of us. But I watched her improve, watched her confidence grow, watched her start to believe that maybe she could do the things other kids could do. One evening in late September, she finished her homework, tracing letters, nothing complex, and looked up at me with shining eyes. "Grandma, I did it all by myself. Ms. Rodriguez is going to be so proud." I'm proud of you too, baby. She beamed. That smile, the one that came more and more frequently now, made every exhausting day worth it. While Aaliyah was learning to be a normal child, Darnell's life was falling apart. I knew because Shanice kept me updated. Not because I asked, I didn't care what happened to him, but because it was relevant to the case. His employer, TechCore Solutions, had put him on administrative leave the day after the first hearing. By mid-July, they'd quietly let him go. No press release, no announcement, just a severance package and a non-disclosure agreement. They can't be associated with someone charged with child abuse, Shanice explained. It's a liability issue. Good. Vanessa's situation was worse. Her Instagram following had continued to hemorrhage, from 52,000 to 14,000 after her airport bathroom meltdown, then down to 8,000 as more people dug into the story, then to 3,200. The sponsorship deals evaporated. The clothing brands, the skincare companies, the lifestyle products, all of them dropped her. Some publicly with statements about not aligning with our values. Others just quietly stopped responding to her emails. She tried to salvage it, posted an apology video that felt rehearsed and insincere, talked about making mistakes and learning and growing. The comments destroyed her. You didn't make a mistake. You locked a child in a closet for 8 months. This isn't an apology. This is damage control. Delete your account. You don't deserve a platform. She deleted the video within 6 hours. By August, she'd made her Instagram private and stopped posting entirely. Her perfect digital life, the one she'd valued more than a child's well-being, was gone. Shanice showed me one more piece of information in early September. Darnell and Vanessa had put the house on Cedar Hill Drive up for sale. They need the money, Shanice said. Legal fees are draining them. Brennan's retainer alone was probably $25,000, and this case is costing them more every day. That house is still in my name, I said quietly. The deed. I never actually transferred it. Just gave them occupancy rights. Shanice looked up sharply. Are you serious? Dead serious. I kept my name on everything. Old habit from 4 decades of seeing people make bad financial decisions. Loretta, that changes everything. They can't sell it without your permission. I know. Are you going to give them permission? Eventually, but not yet. Let them sweat a little longer. In late September, the Multnomah County District Attorney offered Darnell and Vanessa a plea deal. Shanice called me the day it was proposed. They're willing to plead guilty to child neglect and financial exploitation. In exchange, the DA will drop the child endangerment charge. What's the difference? Sentencing. Child endangerment is a Class B felony, carries up to 10 years. With the plea deal, they're looking at probably 18 to 30 months for Darnell, 12 to 24 for Vanessa. That's it? 30 months for locking a child in a closet? It's the reality of our justice system, Loretta. You know that as well as I do. The DA wants a guaranteed conviction without the expense and uncertainty of a trial. Darnell and Vanessa want to avoid the maximum sentence. This is the compromise. I sat with that for a moment. 30 months. 2.5 years. He'd be out before Aaliyah turned 8. What about the parental rights termination? I asked. That's separate. Family court, not criminal court. Judge Pierce will make that decision regardless of the plea deal. But the criminal conviction helps our case significantly. Then tell the DA I'm fine with it, as long as Darnell admits what he did. On the record. In open court. He will. That's part of allocution. Formal admission of guilt. Good. I want everyone to hear him say it. The psychological evaluation of Aaliyah came back in October. Dr. Morales had spent 3 weeks doing comprehensive testing, interviewing Aaliyah, observing her at school, talking to her teachers and tutors. The report was 37 pages long. Shanice and I reviewed it together in her office. Aaliyah Washington, age 5, presents with symptoms consistent with post-traumatic stress disorder, including hypervigilance, nightmares, separation anxiety, and persistent fear of enclosed spaces. She demonstrates social anxiety disorder and exhibits behavioral patterns typical of prolonged emotional and physical neglect. Testing reveals delayed cognitive development consistent with lack of educational stimulation. Reading comprehension and mathematical reasoning skills are approximately 18 to 24 months behind age-appropriate levels. Fine motor skills are similarly delayed. However, the child demonstrates remarkable resilience. In the 3 months since removal from the neglectful environment, she has shown significant improvement in social engagement, emotional regulation, and trust building. She has formed healthy attachments with her current guardian, grandmother Loretta Washington, and is responding well to therapeutic intervention. Prognosis. With continued therapy, educational support, and stable placement, Aaliyah can be expected to make substantial developmental progress. However, the trauma she experienced will likely have long-term effects, requiring ongoing psychological support into adolescence and possibly adulthood. Clinical recommendation. Aaliyah should remain in current placement with grandmother. Contact with father should be prohibited pending resolution of criminal proceedings. Reunification is not recommended at this time or in the foreseeable future, given the severity of neglect and the risk of re-traumatization. This is perfect, Shanice said, highlighting key passages. Dr. Morales basically gave us everything we need for permanent guardianship and parental rights termination. It's not perfect, I said quietly. It's my granddaughter's trauma, documented in clinical language. There's nothing perfect about it. Shanice had the grace to look ashamed. You're right. I'm sorry. I meant it's compelling evidence for our case. I know what you meant. And yes, it is. September 15th. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for 2 p.m. I arrived an hour early with Shanice. Aaliyah was at school. Mrs. Rodriguez had promised to keep her busy with art projects, and wouldn't mention where I'd gone. The courthouse was more crowded than last time. Word had spread. A case involving an Instagram influencer, child abuse, and a grandmother seeking justice had all the elements of a story people couldn't look away from. Reporters lined the back row. I recognized a few from local news, one from the Oregonian, even someone who looked like they might be from a national outlet. I didn't care about them. I cared about the 2 people sitting at the defense table. Darnell looked worse than he had 3 months ago. He'd lost more weight. His suit, a different one, cheaper, hung loose on his frame. His hands shook slightly as he arranged papers in front of him. Vanessa sat rigidly, staring straight ahead. No tears today. Maybe she'd run out. Or maybe she'd finally realized that crying wouldn't fix this. Judge Pierce entered. We all stood. Please be seated. We're here today for sentencing in the matter of State of Oregon versus Darnell Washington and Vanessa Washington. Both defendants have entered guilty pleas to child neglect in the first degree and financial exploitation of a minor. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, Brennan said, standing. Very well. Before I impose sentence, I'm going to allow for victim impact statements. Ms. Shanice Harper, you're representing the victim's guardian? Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Loretta Washington would like to address the court. My heart was pounding as I stood and walked to the podium. I'd testified in court hundreds of times in my career. But this was different. This was personal. I looked at the judge, then at Darnell. He couldn't meet my eyes. Your Honor, my name is Loretta Washington. I'm a retired social worker. For 38 years, I worked for the Department of Human Services, Child Protective Division. I fought to protect children from abuse and neglect. I've seen terrible things. Homes where children were beaten, starved, abandoned. I paused, gathering my thoughts. But I never imagined I'd have to protect my own granddaughter from my own son. I could hear someone in the gallery crying softly. I didn't look back. Aaliyah Washington is 5 years old. When I found her on June 4th, she weighed 36 pounds. She should have weighed at least 42. She was living in a closet in an attic. A closet 8 feet by 10 feet, with a thin mattress on the floor, plastic dishes with dried food on them, and barely enough room to stand up straight. My voice stayed level, professional. This was a skill I'd honed over decades, delivering devastating information without emotion, because emotion clouds the facts, and facts are what win cases. She'd been isolated from other children, from education, from basic human interaction for 8 months. Her father and stepmother kept her hidden like a shameful secret while they spent her support money on luxury vacations and designer clothes. I looked directly at Darnell now. He was staring at the table. The psychological damage may never fully heal. Aaliyah has post-traumatic stress disorder. She wakes up screaming from nightmares. She's afraid of the dark, afraid of being alone, afraid that any moment someone might lock her away again. She's in therapy twice a week, learning how to be a normal child, something that should come naturally but doesn't for her anymore. Vanessa was crying now, shoulders shaking. I didn't care. But here's what I want this court to understand. Despite everything they did to her, Aaliyah is surviving. She's learning to trust again. She's making friends. She's laughing. She's doing all of that because she's away from the people who hurt her. I paused, let that sink in. The best thing that ever happened to Aaliyah Stanley was being found. And the best thing for her future is ensuring that those who neglected her face real consequences. Consequences that make it impossible for them to hurt her ever again. I looked at Darnell one more time. My son made his choices. Now he gets to live with them. And I get to make sure my granddaughter never has to live with them again. I returned to my seat. The courtroom was silent except for muffled crying from somewhere in the gallery. Judge Pierce reviewed her notes for what felt like an eternity. Then she looked up. Mr. Washington, Mrs. Washington, please stand. They stood. Darnell swayed slightly. Vanessa's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. I've reviewed all the evidence in this case, Judge Pierce began. The medical reports documenting severe malnourishment and dehydration. The police photographs of the conditions this child was kept in. The financial records showing systematic theft from a minor's support account. The psychological evaluation detailing the trauma inflicted. Her voice was hard as steel. I've also read the victim impact statement from Ms. Loretta Washington, and I want to note for the record that her testimony represents not just the voice of a concerned grandmother, but the voice of a professional who spent nearly 4 decades protecting children just like Aaliyah. She looked at Darnell. Mr. Darnell Washington, you are the father of Aaliyah Washington. You were entrusted with her care after her mother's death. Instead of protecting her, you confined her. Instead of nurturing her, you neglected her. Instead of using the money meant for her welfare, you stole it for your personal comfort. Judge Pierce's voice dropped lower. What you did wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. It was a systematic, calculated choice to prioritize your lifestyle over your daughter's fundamental needs. For 8 months, you made that choice every single day. Darnell's face crumbled. He started to cry. For the crime of child neglect in the first degree, I sentence you to 12 months in county jail. For financial exploitation of a minor, I sentence you to 18 months in state prison. These sentences will run consecutively, not concurrently. Total incarceration, 30 months, with eligibility for early release after serving 18 months with good behavior. She made a note. Upon release, you will serve 5 years of supervised probation. You will be required to complete parenting classes and psychological counseling, though I note that these requirements are largely symbolic given my next ruling. She looked up. Furthermore, I am terminating your parental rights to Aaliyah Washington. Effective immediately. You will have no custody, no visitation rights, no contact whatsoever. A permanent restraining order is hereby issued, prohibiting you from coming within 500 feet of the child. This order is permanent and will remain in effect until Aaliyah reaches age 18. Darnell made a sound, a choked gasp that might have been a sob. Judge Pierce turned to Vanessa. Mrs. Vanessa Washington, while you are not Aaliyah's biological parent, you were the adult female in the household. You had a responsibility to report abuse or neglect. Instead, you participated in it. You benefited from the stolen money. You helped create and maintain the conditions of Aaliyah's confinement. Vanessa was sobbing openly now. For child neglect in the first degree, I sentence you to 12 months in county jail. For financial exploitation of a minor, I sentence you to an additional 12 months, consecutive. Total sentence: 24 months with eligibility for early release after 12 months served. Upon release, you will serve 3 years of supervised probation. Like your husband, you are prohibited from any work involving children, and a permanent restraining order prohibits contact with Aaliyah Washington. The gavel came down once. Additionally, both defendants are ordered to pay restitution. The full amount of misappropriated child support, $31,553, will be paid into a trust account for Aaliyah Washington, along with $18,400 in legal fees to Ms. Loretta Washington. Failure to comply will result in wage garnishment upon release and possible additional civil penalties. Another strike of the gavel. Bailiff, take the defendants into custody. 2 bailiffs moved forward, one toward Darnell, one toward Vanessa. That's when Darnell turned to me. Mom. His voice was desperate, breaking. Mama, please, tell them you forgive me. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. You can stop this. You can... Vanessa spun around, mascara running in black streaks. Miss Washington, you've destroyed our lives? Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted? We've lost everything. I stood slowly. Shanice put a hand on my arm. A warning or support, I wasn't sure which. I walked toward them. The bailiffs paused, uncertain. Judge Pierce watched but didn't intervene. I stopped a few feet from Darnell, close enough to see the tears on his face, the absolute desperation in his eyes. You want to know what I wanted, Vanessa? My voice was quiet, but the courtroom was silent enough that everyone heard. I wanted to be invited to my son's wedding. I wanted to know I had a granddaughter. I wanted that child to grow up loved, not locked away like something shameful. I turned to Darnell. You asked if I'm happy. No, baby, I'm not happy. I'm heartbroken because the son I raised died the day he chose his image over his child's life. Darnell reached out like he might touch my arm. I stepped back. The man standing in front of me? I don't know him. I don't recognize him. The boy I raised would never have done this. My voice got quieter still. You taught Aaliyah that she had to be invisible to be loved, that she wasn't worth basic care, that she was disposable. So now I'm going to teach you what invisible feels like. I looked at him directly, let him see the coldness in my eyes. I'm going to walk out of this courtroom. I'm going to go home to your daughter, my granddaughter, and give her the life you stole from her. I'm going to watch her grow up, graduate, maybe go to college, get married, have children of her own. I'm going to be there for every milestone, every achievement, every moment. I stepped closer, one step, close enough that only he could hear my final words. And you'll never see her again. That's not revenge, Darnell. That's protection. Protection for a little girl who deserves better than a father who locked her in a closet. I stepped back, raised my voice so the courtroom could hear. I'm not your mama anymore. I'm Aaliyah's grandmother, and that's all I need to be. Darnell's face collapsed completely. Mama, please. Bailiff, Judge Pierce said firmly. Remove the defendants. They took him away. He was still crying, still calling for me. I didn't turn around. Vanessa went quieter, just staring at me with hate in her eyes. Like this was all my fault. Like I was the villain in her story. Let her think that. I didn't care what she thought anymore. The courtroom doors closed behind them. The sound echoed. Reporters surged forward, questions flying. Shanice guided me past them. No comment. Ms. Washington has no comment at this time. We made it to the elevator. The doors closed. Just me and Shanice, rising up and away from that courtroom. That was, Shanice started. Necessary, I finished. I was going to say devastating. But yes, also necessary. We rode in silence for a moment. It's over, she said. The criminal case, the custody case, it's all over. You won. It's not over. Aaliyah still has years of therapy ahead. Darnell will get out eventually. Vanessa will rebuild her life somehow. Nothing's really over. But Aaliyah is safe. Permanently. That's victory, Loretta. I nodded. She was right. It was victory. It just didn't feel the way I'd expected victory to feel. 6 months later, life settled into something I hadn't expected. Normal. Not the quiet retirement normal I'd imagined 2 years ago. This was louder, messier, fuller, better. Aaliyah was thriving. That's the word Dr. Morales used at our last check-in. Thriving. She'd gained 10 pounds. Healthy weight, good weight. She was reading at grade level now, thanks to 3 months of intensive tutoring. Her artwork covered my refrigerator, my walls, every available surface. She had 4 close friends now, Destiny, Keisha, Zara, and a new girl named Imani who'd just moved to Portland from Chicago. They had playdates, sleepovers, normal first-grade girl things. The nightmares were rare now, maybe once a month instead of every night. She still needed a nightlight, and the door cracked open, probably always would. But she could sleep through the night most of the time. The house on Cedar Hill Drive had finally sold in February, after I gave permission, 6 months after Darnell had asked for it. The sale price was $487,000. After realtor fees and paying off the small mortgage remaining, there was $412,000 left. I'd put every penny into a trust fund for Aaliyah, managed by a financial advisor, untouchable until she turned 25. It would pay for college or trade school or whatever she wanted to pursue. Her future was secure. Darnell was in Coffee Creek Correctional Facility, serving his sentence. He'd written me 3 letters. I'd returned all of them unopened. Shanice had advised me that any contact could complicate the restraining order. But honestly, even without that advice, I wouldn't have read them. There was nothing he could say that I needed to hear. Vanessa was in the same facility, different wing. Her Instagram account had been deleted entirely. Whether by her or by Instagram, I didn't know and didn't care. This morning, March 3rd, I woke up to Aaliyah singing in the bathroom while she brushed her teeth. Some song from school, off-key but enthusiastic. I made pancakes. She came into the kitchen wearing her favorite purple dress, her choice, her style. We'd learned she loved purple, and butterflies, and anything that sparkled. All the things she'd never gotten to express when she was hidden away. "Grandma, can Destiny come over after school? We're making friendship bracelets." "Of course, baby. I'll make snacks. Can we make those cookies? The chocolate chip ones?" "We can make whatever you want." She smiled, that big, unself-conscious smile that showed the gap where she'd lost her first tooth last month. We'd put it under her pillow. The tooth fairy left $5. Aaliyah spent it on art supplies. At 8:15, we walked to the bus stop together. She wore her backpack, had upgraded from dinosaurs to butterflies, a new obsession. She held my hand as we walked, chattering about her day's plans, about what Destiny had said yesterday, about the book her teacher was reading to the class. Normal kid things. Beautiful, mundane, normal kid things. At the bus stop, she hugged me tight. "Love you, Grandma." "Love you more, baby girl." I watched the bus pull away, Aaliyah waving from the window until she disappeared around the corner. That afternoon, Linda Thompson came by for her final home visit. DHS was officially closing the case. Aaliyah was thriving, the placement was stable, there were no concerns. "This is just a formality," Linda said, accepting a cup of tea. "Everything looks perfect. I'm signing off on the case closure today." We sat in my living room, still crowded with Aaliyah's things, her artwork, her life. "Can I ask you something?" Linda said. "Off the record?" "Go ahead." "How did you do it? Stay so calm through everything? Most grandparents in your situation would have fallen apart." I thought about that. Watched Aaliyah through the window, drawing at her art table in the bedroom. I didn't stay calm, Linda. I stayed cold. Because if I'd let myself feel everything I wanted to feel, the rage, the betrayal, the grief for the son I thought I knew, I would have lost. And losing meant Aaliyah might have gone back to that attic. So I did what I've done my whole career. I put the child first, even when that meant putting my own son in prison. I took a sip of tea. People think revenge is about anger. It's not. Revenge is about making sure the person who hurt you can never do it again. And I made sure. Darnell's out of Aaliyah's life forever. That's not revenge. That's just making sure she gets to be a child. Finally. Linda nodded slowly. She's lucky to have you. No, I'm lucky to have her. That evening, after Destiny had gone home and Aaliyah had finished her homework and we'd made cookies that were slightly burnt but still delicious, I tucked her into bed. My bed had become hers months ago. I'd been sleeping on the couch without complaint. This space was hers now. Pink sheets she'd picked out. Butterfly curtains. Stuffed animals arranged just so. "Grandma," she said as I pulled the covers up, "do you think I'll remember the attic when I'm grown up?" It was a question she'd asked Dr. Morales before. Now she was asking me. "Maybe, baby. Probably. But I hope you'll remember this more." I gestured around the room. "The way you're safe now. The way you're loved. The way you get to be exactly who you are." I like being exactly who I am. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." I kissed her forehead. She smelled like cookie dough and the lavender shampoo we used. Child smells. Safe smells. "Can you leave the light on?" "Always." I turned on her nightlight, a butterfly that projected stars on the ceiling, and left the door cracked open. Our routine, our ritual. In the living room, I sat on the couch with a cup of tea and looked around my apartment. It wasn't much. One bedroom that wasn't even mine anymore. A living room half filled with a child's toys. A kitchen where we made burnt cookies together. It wasn't the retirement I'd planned. It wasn't quiet or peaceful or easy. It was better. My phone buzzed. A text from Shanice. "Close the final trust fund paperwork. Aaliyah's future is secure. You did it, Loretta." I typed back, "We did it." But that wasn't quite right either. The truth was simpler. Aaliyah did it. She survived. She trusted. She let herself be loved again, despite every reason not to. All I did was make sure she had the chance. I set my phone down and picked up the book I'd been reading. Something light, a mystery novel from the library. But I couldn't focus on it. My mind kept wandering back to that courtroom, to Darnell's face, to the moment I'd told him I wasn't his mother anymore. It was the truth, but it still hurt. I'd lost my son. Not to death, which would have been easier in some ways. I'd lost him to his own choices, his own cruelty, his own decision that a child's life was worth less than his comfort. But I'd gained a granddaughter, a chance to do right by her, a purpose I hadn't expected to find in retirement. It wasn't a fair trade. Nothing about this situation was fair. But it was what it was. And I'd learned a long time ago that you can't change what happened. You can only decide what you do next. What I did next was this. I protected Aaliyah. I built a case so strong that no one could take her away. I made sure her father faced consequences. I gave her a home where she was safe, loved, free. And I'd keep doing that, every day, for as long as she needed me. Maybe that wasn't revenge. Maybe it was just love, the fiercest kind of love there is, the kind that protects, that refuses to fail, that holds on when everything else falls apart. From the bedroom, I heard Aaliyah's voice, sleepy. "Grandma, are you still there?" "I'm right here, baby, not going anywhere." "Promise?" "Promise." A pause. Then, "Okay, night." "Good night, sweetheart." I sat in the quiet of my living room, surrounded by evidence of a child's life. Crayons on the coffee table, shoes by the door, a sweater draped over the chair. They'd tried to make her invisible. I'd made her seen, made her safe, made her whole again. Or as whole as someone can be after what she'd been through. And that was victory. Not the loud kind, not the celebrated kind. The quiet kind that happens in small apartments with burnt cookies and butterfly nightlights. The kind that lasts. I closed my book and stood, went to check on Aaliyah one more time. She was asleep, arms wrapped around her stuffed elephant, breathing steady and deep. I stood in the doorway watching her. This child I'd known for less than a year. This stranger who'd become my whole world. "Sweet dreams, baby girl," I whispered. Then I closed the door, just slightly the way she liked it, and went back to my life. My small, crowded, imperfect, beautiful life. The life I'd built from the wreckage of my son's choices. The life where Aaliyah could finally, finally be safe. And that was enough.